Much like Mario Paint, the announcement of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance coming to NSO was accompanied by its soundtrack being added to Nintendo Music. Why Nintendo doesn't do this more often is a mystery to me. It's perfect cross-promotion in my opinion. Path of Radiance isn't the Fire Emblem game I was personally hoping to see added to the app next, but it is one of the most loved entries in the series, and while I haven't played it yet and haven't heard much of its music before, what I have heard is very solid. The game has 5 different composers, Yoshito Sekigawa and Saki Haruyama, who have been working on Fire Emblem since the Blazing Blade, Naoko Mitome, who only composed music for this game and Radiant Dawn, and Atsushi Yoshida and Kanako Terame, who have this game as their sole contribution to the series. Before we go into the individual songs, I just want to say I really like how this music sounds. A lot of GameCube era soundtracks use very low quality sound fonts. Even in-house Nintendo games like Twilight Princess and Donkey Kong Jungle Beat do this. But Path of Radiance has a very distinct high quality sound font that makes everything just sound grand, even though most of the instruments are still MIDI. Ike's Resolution is a good example, starting off the game with a very bombastic piece, letting you know you're in for quite the adventure. Unlike other Fire Emblem soundtracks, which organize their music in the rough order that plays in-game, Path of Radiance's is organized by type, playing the map themes first, then the battle themes, then the cutscene and event themes. So I'll be doing that too. The first fight is relatively light, easing you into the game before things get more intense. A battle at a beginning brings out the strings and wins for a more powerful track once you get settled in. Grail Mercenaries is where the music starts getting really good. It's one of the most heroic sounding tracks I've heard in quite a while. Victory is Near is one you've probably heard in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and it's a great reward for defeating all the enemies, even if it only plays on a few maps. Crimea attacks just sound so powerful. The booming drums really add to the sense of might, combining with the intense strings to make for one of the game's highlights. Lastly, there's Congregation of Ambition, the final map theme. It does pale in comparison to some of the later Fire Emblem final map themes, but it's certainly grandiose and menacing, so it still makes for a fitting finale. There's also Side Battle, which is actually a remix of Chapter 10's theme from Genealogy of the Holy War. That's really cool, and the remix itself is quite majestic. Moving on to the battle themes, the enemy draws near some really menacing low horns that make it feel like you're fighting a real threat. Against the Black Knight is another one popularized by Brawl, and for good reason. It's short, but the imposing strings and brass give it a real sense of might that make it one of the most memorable themes in the game. To challenge Ashnard is the final boss theme, and it's a very sinister one. The rest of the soundtrack lacks vocals, so the haunting choir makes this song stand out nicely from the rest. The cutscene themes are generally solid, but unremarkable as you'd probably expect. But I love Oliver's theme, Power Hungry Fool. We don't get too many harpsichord themes in video games, but this one is just magnificent, and the violin joins in halfway through to make the song even better. A Grave Fate is one of the most ominous tracks I've heard in a Fire Emblem game. The overlapping strings give the song a fantastic sense of dread. I swear part of Brave General, Brave King has the He's a Pirate leitmotif from Pirates of the Caribbean. You hear it too, right? I'm not complaining, it sounds really good on a flute, I just think it's funny. The Black Knight's theme is really foreboding, like you've encountered an unstoppable force that you have no hope of beating. And finally, we have a grand, triumphant remix of the Fire Emblem theme. One of my favorite versions of the song, in fact. The booming drums and excellent strength carry this remix extremely well. Path of Radiance's music is very good across the board. Like I said before, the sound font they used is really distinct and holds up way better than a lot of other soundtracks from this era, and it would be carried over to its direct sequel, Radiant Dawn. The only thing holding it back for me is the lack of any really, truly outstanding tracks. As much as I like tracks like Crimea Attacks and Power Hungry Fool, I'd be lying if I said they came anywhere close to the best of the more modern Fire Emblems, like Awakening or even Engage. Still several steps ahead of the Blazing Blade though, so that's something. It was pretty close, but I'm ranking Fire Emblem Path of Radiance at spot number 27, behind Super Mario Party Jamboree, but ahead of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D. Ocarina of Time's soundtrack is definitely more iconic and has a couple high highs like the final boss theme, but as a package and taking the sound quality into account, I think Path of Radiance just barely beats it out. As for why Super Mario Party Jamboree is higher, I guess I'd just rather listen to Jamboree's soundtrack over Path of Radiance's. I'll see you next time for the next episode of Nintendo Music Weekly. I'm curious to see how Radiant Dawn will compare when it gets added to the app, since it's usually overshadowed by its predecessor. While there are other Fire Emblems I'd much rather see show up first, it'll be fun comparing the Tellius duology's music when the time comes. 2026 is going to be an interesting time for Nintendo music, that's for sure. Bye.